Okay, so I'll start recording this meeting. I might move a little bit because sometimes my laptop happier if I moved and then my internet connection comes back properly, stops being silly. Just hoping. Right, I can now see some movement. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah, I can see Stephanie nodding. So okay, but I think a couple of the others are frozen. I think you're coming back. Hopefully. Yeah, good. Right. Okay. Uh, okay, so I'll start off, I'll give you a quick update on where we are with the website. So I did start out with 4 students that were assigned to help us with the website. Unfortunately, one of them had a family crisis, and his wife's been incredibly ill in hospital. So he hasn't been able to do any work at all because he's looking after his family and his wife. So I've had 3 students, 2 that are developers, they're sort of IT background, and then one of the other students is more sort of creative and helping with the design and logos and bits and pieces. So we have a website domain name registered. We have the web hosting set up for free. I managed to get that out of our existing Ring 20 providers, which is fab, because normally they'll only do it for registered charities. So I had to do a bit of negotiation, but luckily they said yes. So the students have been building a basic website with a few key pages on a WordPress platform. But it's not anything that we can really look at just yet. So I'm hoping that there's a couple of, without getting technical, there's a couple of glitches that I'm trying to get them to knit together, and then hopefully there'll be something that I can actually show everybody. So as soon as I have something, I'll be able to send around a kind of a link and then be able to show people what they've created so far. But it's basically some key pages, you know, who we are as a network, or what we do. The who we are then will be the information that you've all provided as individual charities, so we'll be able to present that and put all your links in and everything to your various organizations. And then there'll be a sign up form for other charities to join us if there's anybody we haven't got so far in the network, and also a sign up form for any professionals, companies or guests who would like to work with us, for them to contact us and say, hey, you know, we'd be really interested in come talk to one of your meetings or whatever. So that's the sort of premise. And then we'll have a news sort of page where we can put out publicly an initiative that we've done, such as exhibiting or being at the Young Epilepsy Conference, be examples of what we've done in the past. And maybe if there's anything upcoming, you know, that we're happy publicly to sort of share, to kind of showcase what we're doing. And then if I can get them, and if they can get it working and we have enough time, to have a little bit of a members forum, which is like a private intranet within the website that only us as members of the network would have access to, where we can perhaps share documents and information on stuff that we're working on that we don't want to just share publicly just yet, but where we can you know, have that kind of chat function maybe, or a forum and document sharing. And then once, you know, we've taken an initiative that's completed or is ready to share, then we can put it into the news and say about what we're doing. So that's all the different sort of functionality that they're working on. And they've got lots of good ideas on how that pulls together. So I'm just kind of itching to get to that point where we've got something that I can kind of show you. But what I have been calling out for help with, and these things have taken a bit longer than we anticipated due to students' availability and things like that. but the students have offered to continue and try and get the website finished, because they were due to complete by this week. This would be the end of their work placement officially. But two of the students, one of the ones that was off sick, and one of the other students actually had a quite a large, were signed up for 150 hours. But they're all happy to try and get this finished for us. So they'll carry on working, hopefully, until we can get this finished. So the bits, hi Charlie, thanks for joining. The bits that I will need some help with still, and once we actually have the website to show with the pages, is actually some of the content wording for the pages. And I'm not expecting or needing War and Peace on any of these pages, but just, a paragraph or two, the who we are, what we do, something that just explains, so that if a charity or a company is kind of looking us up, it just tells them that little bit of information, because the students can't make that up for us. It's a little bit difficult. So if anybody's sort of be happy to help with just some of that basic wording, it'll be something we can update and change as we need to, fairly simply, but just something to get started with. So anybody who could volunteer a little bit of time to help with that would be appreciated. And also, once we do have a website that we can look at and navigate around, anybody that might be able to help out with the sort of the testing, in inverted commas, just sort of making sure that, when you do click on something, it does take you where you want it to go to, and that there's nothing obviously glaringly missing, that we can just feed back to the students and say, oh, that doesn't appear to work. Can you correct that for us? So volunteers for those couple of activities would be appreciated. But I'm hopeful we're not far away. I just wish I had something to show. Any questions on website?
I'm happy to give it a test run, Alison, when it's ready. I think Laura is saying exactly the same. Sorry, yeah, Laura.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I'm happy to obviously go through it and click on links and let you know and which ones don't work. No, I was going to say I'm happy to proofread. Obviously, I'm really new to this organisation, so I don't really feel confident enough to kind of say who we are and what we do, because to be honest, I'm still trying to work that out exactly myself. But if somebody kind of wants to write something, really quickly, I'm willing to kind of flesh it out. I used to do that, and proofread it and just make it kind of slightly more professional, I guess. I'm happy to do that.
Oh, fab, thank you. I think by doing little bits all together would be, be really good.
Yeah, and as I said before, I'm happy to do whatever you want me to do. I can have a go at it and send it to Laura and see what she thinks. We could do that together if that would help.
Yeah, I'm happy to work with you, Stephanie.
Alison.
Oh, helpful. Yeah, hi Charlie.
Hello, sorry I'm late. How many people got back to you with the... So I've been away for about 5 weeks, and I'm going through my emails at the moment. But how many people have filled in your email request?
The questionnaire with the details of the charity.
Is that the same thing?
Yeah. So the survey form to have all of the links and everything. So actually, I think the majority have done that. Okay. I need to go back and check, because I was away last week. And I had sent out a reminder, I think a couple of weeks ago, to some of the organisations that didn't appear to have completed all of that. So I just need to, that's a good reminder for me, thanks, to just double check if there's any organisations or the charities that we haven't got the info for, because obviously if they don't provide it, then I can't ask the students to add that information. And I'm sure every one of the member charities would love to be, listed on the network and have that kind of, the links.
You might want to just say that in your reminder to people. That would be a nice little chivvy. I don't know if Hope have done it. I can ask.
I think so. I think they have.
And I don't know if Kreld 1 has done it, because I think I might be the only person.
I think Kreld 1 maybe not. I think I might have without looking. I think I might have hope, but
Okay, I'll email Adam to see if he can, if he'll do that. Probably best coming from him.
thank you.
Maybe you should add Adam to the email alias as well for Kreld one.
Can do. I can do it. Certainly
I'll
do.
email him with your survey email and CC you into it, and then he can reply to say if he wants to join.
Lovely. Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect stuff. Great. Okay. So I think that's where we are on website. So then what I wanted to come on to was formalizing this network a little bit and sort of thinking about maybe having some, you know, we've been around for a couple of years talking on a quarterly basis and doing some things. You know, we're now starting to incur some small costs. And perhaps if we want to attract other companies, organizations, professionals to work with us, you know, it might be good to have some governance around and formalized structure around this network. I don't think we have to be overly formal. We don't have to register as a charity because we would certainly be too small to do any of that at this stage. But maybe just to have some kind of, I was kind of thinking a terms of reference or terms of engagement document might be a good place to start. What do people think about that?
We're going through a similar process, actually, me and some partner organizations. So I've been thinking about this. We're going to have, I think, a memorandum of understanding, which is probably a similar thing, just kind of listing how we expect to work together, our objectives. We haven't done it yet, otherwise I'd show it to you, because then we could maybe use it as a basis. But yeah, I think that's a really good idea. One question I have is, why do you say that we are too small to be a charity in its own right? Because I would have thought if we became a charity, surely we can then access funding from like the larger epilepsy charities and like in the future, and that might be really worthwhile.
So we can become a charity. So we could become a small charity, and there is a 3-page, that's how we started with Ring 20, and possibly others would have done. There is like a small charity constitution template, and there's no registration or anything. We just fill it in and say, as of this date, we become this organisation. You have to have an income of over, I think it's £5,000 per year to register with the Charities Commission. So until we get that level of income, you can't register, but you can become a charity. We can register with HMRC for gift aid if we were in a position to, you know, those sorts of things without being registered. So the small charities constitution could be, you know, just using that template to create ourselves as a charity. And then we have that would enable us to open a bank account. And I believe in the constitution we would need to sort of say whether we have trustees and who those trustees are. So this is where I'm thinking the sort of terms of reference, terms of engagement, memorandum of understanding, whatever we call it, we need to kind of think, who are the committee? You know, it would probably make sense to have a small committee, chair, treasurer, secretary, something like that. And then, you know, within that terms, there's a rotation every so many years or whatever, that the people in the committee change, and that who are those committee members at any point in time we can then publish, and then that also then takes onus away from me organising everything on my own, and that it's more done by a committee. So I think we could set that out. I worked with, when we were doing a load of work with Epicare, we did some work, or a couple of different constitutions or documents, but we created for the Epicare Research Council which was a whole number of the doctors from the different epicare centres that were representative on this council, but also we had 2 of the patient representatives. So there was a terms of reference, and it was quite straightforward. So we could look at that as maybe as a bit of a template, as where the sections and sort of things to think about, you know, what the objectives of the network, what we're about, you know, the structure, having chair and so on and so forth. But then with the patient representatives, it was about, you know, what are you expected to do and what is expected of you, and vice versa. Of so yeah, the member charities, you know, if you want to be part of this network, you should attend the quarterly meetings as far as possible. You should contribute to the ideas and suggestions and blah blah blah, etc. So we could put something together on that basis and possibly use that. Yeah, Sarah.
I think it's probably a good idea to register in some way, because that's realistically the way to get funding, because I think otherwise you restrict what funding you can get quite dramatically. And I think also terms of reference that people sign up to helps people come to the meetings and prioritize them. So in other groups I've been in, for example, that one of the things is you can't miss if you miss more than 2 meetings in a row, you can't be, you know, there's a certain sort of minimum requirement to be a member and things like that. And so I just think it probably is quite sensible.
Yeah, that's a good idea, definitely. And it's sort of, you know, if you're the named representative for your organisation, but you can't come, can you send another representative?
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, exactly. It's about getting a commitment, I think.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. And I think in terms of registering, the Charities Commission won't entertain if we haven't got £5,000 income. They won't even let you even try to register. So we need to get some initial funding from somewhere. Now, whether, you know, so that all needs thinking about by a committee, by the group. How do we achieve some basic funding that allows us to do the initial bits we're doing at the moment and then gets us to that position? I mean, 5,000, I think it's still 5,000, I don't think it's 10. You know, we could then register, and as you say, that provides us a much better access to future funds.
Could you register as a community interest group or something like that? I don't think that has the same threshold. It might be something worth looking at.
Yeah, I don't know. The KICs, or the community interest companies,
or yeah,
the CICs, they are quite different. They're a bit more, as I understand them, they're a bit more like a sort of charitable trade organisation. So that, you know, buy and sell but don't make a profit, and they do
okay.
it. But you become a CIO, but you have to reach the threshold.
I'm not sure if it's a threshold, because I have another little charity that I'm a trustee of, and we registered about 3 years ago, and it's a tiny charity. It's nothing to do with genetics, and we have an annual income of like £3,000, and that's it.
And you were able to register?
Yeah, we registered about just before the pandemic, maybe a few months before the pandemic. So I don't know whether it's changed, but it might be worth looking at.
Yeah, we're a CIO, and we registered with 0 money. We didn't even have a bank account. And that was a year ago. You have to kind of give an estimation at the time of how much money you're hoping to raise. Obviously, that was like, you know, putting a finger in the air, because we had absolutely no idea. But yeah, so that's a CIO. Yeah, no, so you can, obviously, like, I recognize, you know, we're very busy, so not to push it, but I do think it is something that is available to us before funding, when we feel like the time is right.
Okay, so that sounds like that's possible. So the CIO, so we're a CIO as Ring 20, and it's like a 50-page, isn't it, almost, template constitution, and there is a certain level of governance we will have to agree between the whole member charities. So maybe the terms of engagement we need to draw up first, get everybody to sign up to that commitment, create some kind of committee, and then presumably would we need the sort of the small charity constitution, so we could open a bank account even if we put a nominal pound in it, just so that we've got something there, because obviously if we get any funding we need to put it somewhere. And then that would then allow us to go for, say, formal CIO registration as a sort of secondary step.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if we got like organized, like you said, like the terms of reference, then they could be then almost automatically just transplanted into that large document you were talking about. And then, yeah, but you're right, there's no point trying to like register a charity if we haven't agreed on who's willing to, you know, be full like participants, because yeah, you need, like, I can't remember what the minimum board number is. Yeah, but I think the terms of reference, yeah, would just then be replicated, and it would make actually the registration process quite simple, because we would have already made all those decisions. And it is just a bit of a cut and paste in the end, isn't it, that constitution?
Yeah. Okay, so how do we best take this forward?
I'm going to have to run to my next meeting. I'm so sorry. But thank you. And I will catch up from your follow-up email, I'm sure, Alison.
Thanks, Sarah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Sorry. Bye.
That's okay. So how do we? So I think the first thing we've all agreed we need to do is create some kind of terms. Does anybody want to help with having a go at? I'm happy to share, like, the terms of engagement or the terms of reference that I've had from the Epicare stuff, which I, off the top of my head feels, they're not onerous, and it could be something that could be probably adapted. But I'm conscious that I can't do everything, and I'm also moving house in 2 weeks' time. So after 2.5 years of trying to move, so my time's going to be a little bit limited, and I'm also still running with the website stuff.
Alison, I'm sorry, I've got loads to catch up from 5 weeks in hospital, and then I'm away for another week in 2 weeks' time. So I'd love to help, but I think I'm going to be unable to commit currently anyway.
Sure, no, that's understandable.
Do we have a time scale? I mean, because we've got some big fundraisers coming up in the next, like, basically after July, I'll be a lot more free. But obviously the website needs to be sorted, but in terms of this kind of terms of reference and getting us more official, is there a time scale you're looking for? Because if it was in a longer time scale, I could definitely help out.
Yeah, I think we're having these meetings quarterly. I think it would make sense to have a terms of engagement drafted, circulated around, maybe if we had a small working group. Obviously I'm recording this, so those that are not able to, haven't been able to attend, perhaps somebody else might be able to, a couple of people might be able to come forward. So I appreciate we're a very small percentage of the wider group here. If I could have some volunteers, to look at sort of drafting up terms of engagement, circulating that around, and that perhaps, if we could aim to be in 3 months' time to have, something that we could all agree to, I think that would that not be unreasonable by the next meeting? And then with a view to getting all the member charities that want to still stay, and so, to officially sort of sign a copy or something and say, yes, I'm signing up. And then the next meeting, perhaps we can take the next steps. Because this is going to take, but I think we need like a little working group of 2 or 3 people to manage this, maybe.
I may have somebody who might be able to help with it. I feel like I don't quite know what you because I haven't been involved before. I feel like I'm coming in at the end and I'm not even quite sure. But I might have somebody who might be able to help, who's helped with MF and the Inks, the new Inks charity. Might be able to help. I'll ask.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Are you going to email out to the group and ask, obviously?
Yes, I will do. I'll follow up with an email, and also I'm recording this so I can send out a copy of the recording so people can hear this conversation and see what it is we need and why, and then request volunteers. But I do feel that if we don't take this step, then it's going to be quite difficult to continue with this network, which would be an absolute shame. We already have, I've now signed up to a £7.50. Yeah, well, it's not a lot of money once a year for the domain name registration. Okay, I take that on the chin, Ring20, paying that, but it shouldn't be Ring20 paying that. And if there are any further costs, we should, and it begs the question, in the absence of funding, external funding, and we're going to need some people to apply for some external funding, whether that's going for sponsorships from pharma or industry, or going to grant funders and making applications. That do we think about a small subscription model for member charities to this network, just to put a few pounds in the pot once a year from each member charity, so that we have a little bit of money to cover the costs of a banner or some leaflets, the website domain. I mean, we're not going to need hundreds or thousands of pounds in total, are we? But whether a small subscription model might allow us to be sustainable as a network. But I don't know how people would feel about that.
I think like we were paying £10 to be part of Community First, which I never used, so I'm scrapping that. So I think like £10, people would be, well, personally, I think a charity would be happy to pay that, and then obviously they probably see what they get out of it, whether they renew. I don't know if that's my opinion, but that would, I think, maybe like a poll or something, or obviously get everybody's opinion. You wouldn't want to do something that then puts everybody off from being part of it.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. But things like Genetic Alliance UK, Eurodis, Rare Revolution, we pay small subscriptions to all of these umbrella organizations. And yeah, you have to, if you're paying into something, you're going to want to get something out. And we would need to think about, do we just have a small £10 per charity, 20 odd charities, that would give us £200 income a year. It might cover the cost of a couple of little things. But then we've got some much bigger charities and some really, really tiny charities, so do you have a slightly graduated model? You don't want to be made overly complicated, but yeah, you're absolutely right. We don't want to put anybody off, and we don't want the really tiny starting out epilepsy charity groups to feel that they can't join because it's another cost. So I think maybe a poll to gauge opinion, but we can't operate on nothing.
Yeah.
So I'll do that. Put that together with the note afterwards.
And it's also fundraising, isn't it? Because everybody's got their own charity, so whether some things could be done jointly, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. So I was sort of thinking it's going to be quite difficult, wouldn't it, to do a fundraiser for UKRET because, you know, the fundraisers we're all doing are for our individual charities.
Yeah.
So unless we agreed to do something that was shared, that might be more difficult. But perhaps as a network, we have more opportunity to go to one of the big pharma companies, you know, that, you know, provides epilepsy medications or treatments, therapies, you know, GW Pharma or UCB, or I don't know, any other. Would they, you know, as I say, I don't think we need thousands and thousands in the grand scheme of where we'd start out, but would they look at, you know, the sorts of things that we're doing? And that's why I wanted to get the website up there and the governance there, so we can say, look, we're here, we're doing something useful, positive, would you help support us? You know, they'd be, because I think grant funders again might be tricky, but then hey, the National Lottery, £10,000 awards for all, used to be relatively straightforward, but we'd have to provide evidence in making an application that we're responding to a need from the community. And I'm not quite sure, that would need some thinking about. But I know funders like the lottery and others, they like the idea of charities coming together, rather than in individual tiny little groups. So I think it's about pitching it right. We could possibly get a small amount, and that would just give us enough to start with, and then as we think about wanting to do bigger things, then we can look where we can achieve a bit more funding to do that.
Do we have some sort of key objectives? Do we have a list of sort of top 3 or 5 priorities for our group? Apologies, I've probably read it, but I've forgotten.
So I don't think we really have a sort of a mission or vision. So that might be what we need to come up with, is, you know,
and I think how that might differ to what individual groups are doing. If we can find something that we're all trying to do the same thing, but in different ways. But if we could come up with some sort of key objectives, I think that would help clarify what it is we want, you know, what our plan would be. I mean, what do we want? Do we want to do? Raise awareness through conferences and stuff, or do we want to be able to provide buy a resource, or I don't know, can we offer stuff to pharma that they can't get from other places because we know all of our patients, which of course Genomics England doesn't. You know, we have to go via doctors to get to them. So I don't know, I'm just trying to think of things.
Yeah, no, I think you know, all of those probably come in somewhere, don't they? And I think the idea of the network that's in my head that's different to us as individual charities, what we do individually, is if we're raising awareness, we're not raising awareness of this epilepsy, that epilepsy, another epilepsy. It's all of the rare epilepsies together and saying, you know, there's some you probably heard of, and there's all these other ones maybe you haven't. And actually, here are all the patient organisations that can help you connect with those patient communities, and to raise awareness, to provide opportunities for whether it's exhibiting and raising awareness of more of the rare epilepsies, or whether it's in terms of furthering the sort of the research agenda, and you know, if research opportunities or become available, that information can be shared across the whole network, across all of, not just the usual groups, and that it provides more equity in opportunity for research and awareness and information, two-way information, that type of thing. Yes, Charlie.
Yeah, sorry, I just realised I haven't been putting my hand up. I just jump
Oh,
in.
that's all right.
I'll try putting my hand up now. Do we need a clinical champion? Someone like a Samir, or maybe even Sanjay Sisodia? I don't know.
Yeah,
Would you
yeah.
want who
Well,
do you have? I don't know. I mean, it's people to ask. Is it worth having someone who would join, who's a clinical / researcher, who would then also promote us through their talks?
yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, and that, I guess, comes down to this sort of committee or board. You know, do we want a healthcare professional on our board, or a couple on our board that helps to direct and guide some of the initiatives, provides us, you know, input to, oh, do you know, this is coming up over here, this might be really good for you guys to get involved in collectively. I when I've set the network up, I've mentioned it to Helen Cross, and she was you know, absolutely behind supporting us, and obviously, you know, she's very aware of us, in the work that when we spoke at Young Epilepsy event recently, absolutely behind us. And I know, like, the ESNA guys are, you know, nurses are very much behind us. So that is a, you know, that could help champion what we're doing as a network if we had some eminent UK epileptologists, maybe a pediatric and an adult. And maybe an epilepsy nurse, I don't know, just to kind of, as you say, then they can spread the word and also signpost all of us to opportunities.
And of course, we need to be mindful that everything fits within the James Lynn Priority Setting Partnership top 10, just again for direction and clarity, I suppose. I don't see how things wouldn't fit in there, but
no, it's a good point. Good point, actually.
that was done last year, I think, wasn't it? It was
Mm.
by Epilepsy Research UK, but it was done in conjunction with all the other big charities. So
Yeah, absolutely. And that could be something in our terms of engagement as such. We reference that we're, you know, working to support that.
yeah, I think that would be important. Well, I have some names in mind. If
Good.
I mean, do you want me? Do I have free reign,
Yeah, go.
or can I come up with a list and share them with you? I mean, I was talking about you actually. I did have one meeting in hospital, which is about genomics, and I did mention you there to some eminent people. We're looking to put a sort of a letter together and a sort of a call to arms for genomics. The requirement for very fast genomics, but I think Amy McTague.
Yeah, no, Amy.
I'll
Yeah.
get in touch with you soon about that, I think. But I mentioned UKRET there, and they said, "Oh, we've got to have the patient voice. We can't get this done unless we have the patient voice." So there's some people from that, and there's also I think it's Lisa O'Brien from Hope.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
not from Hope. She's part of Hope, but she's also Young Epilepsy. She's also she seems part of everything, but she is amazing. She is a wonderful, wonderful epilepsy nurse. Very, very knowledgeable, very, very kind, very highly regarded. So she might be a good person to champion us as well.
No, very good suggestions. And I think perhaps let's put out if anybody else has any particular suggestions. But I hear what you're saying, Charlie. We want somebody we don't just want somebody to be there in name.
No, I think there is we see that, don't we? We see people think it's great to have my name up on that website, you know, to say I'm part of it, but actually don't do anything. And that's, you know, it doesn't help anyone really, does it? So we want people actually going to be active in that, and come up with some good ideas, or come up with bad ideas and then have them shot down. That's not a bad thing, is it? I suppose. So whatever, yeah, we want, you know, people who are really active, I think.
Okay, so that would be another thing to put out for.
So is it sort of an aim to go towards something almost a bit like Epilepsy Plus in the long run, to be a supportive network for families, or is it more research side of things?
So I never saw UKRET as being a family support.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we differ to what a lot of us do in our day-to-day for our own organisations. The website might signpost if somebody's Googling, if our SEO is any good, and, you know, Googling Dravet, the UKRET site might come up somewhere as well, and then they may find, they'll probably find, that's probably a bad example because they'll probably find Dravet UK first, but maybe some of the rarer epilepsies, it's possible they might find the listing on UKRET and then they can click across and find
Get the link.
But I wasn't expecting our audience or our stakeholders to be families and the patient community. It's more healthcare professionals, you know, and we are UK focused, as obviously. So what can we do within the network of UK epilepsy professionals, you know, to improve standards of care, whether it's, you know, diagnostics, treatment, care, you know, is there anything within the UK frameworks that we collectively feel is missing, or so there's that aspect. And then there's perhaps working with pharma industry, I guess even potentially regulator, MHRA, which is UK specific now, you know, if there were anything within that we felt, you know, we had a specific interest in. You know, to bring their attention, not just looking at this epilepsy or that epilepsy, but hey, there's this whole group and we have access to communities and the information, and, you know, could that help shape the way that, you know, new therapies are, you know, trials are designed, or you know, research ideas coming forward, and how they're shared, really. So it was more I see this network as more of a professional collaborative.
I mean, lots of the individual groups do that sort of one-to-one patient chat anyway, don't they?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we could all, if any of us are contacted by a family about another epilepsy or something, we can always signpost to each other and say, oh, actually, I know somebody who can help you with that. Go talk to whoever, or here's a link. So occasionally those things happen, don't they, with crossovers. But I think we're less about the family support, or we're not about family support. We're about I guess, I don't know, is it all about, if you put it down to basics, improving diagnostics, treatment and care for people with epilepsy living in the UK? And all of that, in order to do that, you need to ensure the awareness is there of all of the different epilepsies. You need to be able to highlight the challenges, and the good practices and the things that are working really well, and how they could be replicated, you know, further. And that's interacting with all professional stakeholders that have an active part to play in those things, you know, whether it's referral pathways, treatment pathways, research to improve, you know, outcomes. But it's doing it on a collective basis rather than singing. So I think it's really important in our terms of engagement that membership of this is not about just wearing the hat for your own epilepsy. It's, you know, we're wearing the hat for the group effectively. But obviously we can input from individually.
But well done for getting Ingo Helbig to blog about Ring 20, or Ingo's team anyway.
Yeah, I didn't ask
You
for
had
that one.
You had nothing to do with that.
No.
Oh, well done. Well, that's even better in a way. Well, yeah.
So sometimes things happen serendipitously, don't they? But yeah, I think, you know, we there's certain opportunities that present. You know, I did have conversations a while back, I think just before the Young Epilepsy meeting, with LifeArc, who want to they're keen to talk to us as a network and do some work with us, which they wouldn't been so interested in having individual conversations with, say, us as Ring 20 on our own. So, you know, I will keep in contact with them to see how that might potentially progress. And, you know, something like that could be quite powerful for us as a network. So
I put a link into something else I'm involved with. And do you know Professor Rohit Shankar? So he's running this with also a guy, Professor John Terry. They're very much involved with epilepsy, but this is slightly more neurological, but it might be something to just think about if we could. I mean, I'm involved with them, so I can always link in, but just out of interest.
Okay. Well, obviously, you know, this is the sort of thing that we've kind of said, if there are any organizations or professionals that would like to present at a meeting, or, you know, to tell us about an initiative or something that's going on that any of us might be interested in or want to engage with us, then, you know, we would love to invite them as a guest speaker, you know, as yourself and Peter did, you know, and then because Amy McTague mentioned at the Young Epilepsy event, she'd very happily come and speak to us all, and, you know, then we could perhaps have a bit of a Q&A with her about, you know, hey, what opportunities might there be for, you know, and start a conversation. So I think we can line up. I think there are a few organisations that will be willing to talk to us, and the more that we can do that, I hope, the more opportunities we get. I mean, things like several of us were at the BPNA meeting the other week about the latest on the cannabidiol trials that are coming up next year, updating us. And obviously the BPNA tend to send out only to the charities that they know about. So I think, you know, that's something, I think that was just before I went away, so we should make sure that is shared, the updates from that can be shared with everybody here, so that none of the charities get left behind in terms of not understanding what's coming up in those trials, sort of the rough timelines and who could be eligible, and when that information could be shared more widely.
Out of interest, did they say what the new trial is? Is it just going to involve a lot more people, or have they managed to refine the actual drug itself? Or
it's two trials. They've been talking about this for about 3 years, I
yeah,
think.
no, I'm intrigued.
But it's likely to kick off next year, early next year-ish. They were expecting about a 9-month lead time, but basically it's two trials. One, and Val, you might correct me if I get this one wrong off the top of my head. One with a cannabidiol on its own, because a lot of the trials have been done cannabidiol plus clobazam. So cannabidiol on its own, and the main eligibility criteria will be early onset epilepsies, so those where the epilepsy starts before the age of 3. And that's to see if cannabidiol, a form of cannabidiol on its own, it won't be Epidiolex, it will be another product, which is what they're sourcing at the moment. So that's one trial. And then the other trial will be for people with genetic epilepsies, I think is the term that they call it. So it's, you have an epilepsy, a refractory epilepsy, but you don't have a specific genetic etiology yet. And you have no learning disability, or could be very mild learning disability. And one of the I can't remember which way around. Did I get them on the right way around? I can't remember if the ones with the early onset is cannabidiol only, and one of the other trials is cannabidiol with THC, because they want to prove safety and efficacy of cannabidiol on its own, and also, is cannabidiol with the THC any more or less effective or any more or less safe? And so they want to look at the most severe epilepsies, which is typically in the early onset, the ones where the epilepsy starts really young. And then they want to see that in sort of those people that are less severely affected, that the cannabidiol is still safe and efficacious. So that's the concept of the two trials. So they're going to keep us all posted, as some of us are all part of a PPI group, but it's something that I think is there's a lot of interest in the community, not just from the patient associations, but also from the patients themselves. And when they mentioned this 2 or 3 years ago, when they first spoke to us about this, I think you remember, Val, I think you were in that meeting, and they were like, oh, with clinical trials, the patient recruitment, we'll need to get the word out there. And I think most of us in the room said, I don't think you have any problem with patient recruitment, just because of the media thing. Everybody thinks, oh, I want to be part of this. Whether that comes to be, but I suspect there won't be a lot of reluctance. People will want to come forward for this. But one of the key things that I took away from the meeting the other week was, they've got to source this new product. And it won't, after the trial, if the product you're on is proven to be effective for you, you can't continue on that product, because it will need to go through licensing and what have you. So, but if you were proven to be helped by this particular product of cannabidiol that they're going to get, then you may be given access through NICE to something like Epidiolex, whilst they go through the licensing. So that we all kind of said, well, there will need to be very clear messaging to the families about that. Because what if you get a fantastic result from whatever you're on, and then you're told you can't have it anymore? Gosh. But that's apparently, it's because it's being run by the NIHR, isn't it, rather than the NHS or NICE or something. It was that they're not allowed to say, oh, you can keep taking this product, because it will be an experimental product, in inverted commas.
Wow, well, that might put people off. Because if you're on a successful drug that's working and then you suddenly come off it, sometimes the epilepsy can never go away again. Could we use this group as, like you said, like it seems like the clinicians and the researchers kind of struggle to find people for their trials? I mean, could that be partly what this group's for, to be that voice to say, look, there's a clinical trial? I mean, I had no clue about this because I don't go to those.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. It'd be interesting. I mean, it'd be interesting to know how many of our charities involved have people who do have a genetic diagnosis. So, for example, I know that UKRET, the infantile spasms, probably a reasonable number of them won't have, but of course the gene will have.
early onset group, wouldn't they? Probably.
Yeah, but I mean, thinking about it, if we could pull together, that's why I was talking about a bio-resource, but more of a sort of a patient registry, you know, names of people, which we can do as charities. I'm speaking here as a trustee for a charity rather than as my job at Genomics England. But, you know, if we had then a sort of a list of people with different diagnoses, clinical and genetic, that might be really useful to pharma. They might, you know, we might be able to say we've got these people who reacted badly to this drug but did well, or I don't know. I mean, that sounds like a long-term thing. It might be really difficult to do, but then again, some of these charities I know have already got that sort of information. So that could be really, really useful, really powerful, probably really valuable, both in a sort of in a monetary sense and well, just a knowledge sense.
Yeah, because like we're working really hard to, you know, create like the best patient data possible, you know, and then get lots of natural history studies. If nobody knows we exist and that we possess all that information, then good is it? But why, if we, you know, if there's some criteria, oh, you know, that you need to have this information, we'd be like, well, we've got it. We've been collecting it for 10 years.
Yeah, and so I one of the other groups I'm involved with, it's a very new group, and we're trying to access other sort of data sets to work out that so that we can be consistent with other different epilepsies. So if we've all got spreadsheets and they all record different things, how do you merge them all together to make a nice big database? I think you know, that perhaps that could be something else that we do. We have a consistent way of recording our different epilepsies to age of onset.
We've just started doing one for keto. We've just started a registry for keto. You know, which diet are they on, what, that kind of thing. Yeah.
But that might be something really useful we could do, is to get some sort of consistency with. I mean, I'm sure there are go-to places for patient registers, aren't there? I think Nord or Global Genes or something do something like that. But, you know, perhaps if we all work for the same one, that might be useful.
Yeah, no, we did have about a year or so ago, we had Dan Louis presented to us about Pulse InfoFrame. Obviously and they were quite interested if, you know, some of us charities wanted to go for that as a collective, so we could each have our individual instance, if you like, but we would all share the same data elements within the database, and we're all collecting, as you say, the same information, just, you know, that the information would be ring fenced per charity and per condition. But nobody sort of really went for that because the cost was quite prohibitive, because for the larger groups, they've possibly already got some form of registry. And then for the smaller groups with us, £10,000 per year for every year is prohibitive. You know, you can't guarantee that you're going to be able to find that money. Whether there's some negotiation possible to find some middle ground with, or even I think, so UKRET, that's a free offering. So they're doing registries and they're actually quite focused on epilepsy. And they collect standard data, but it is US based, although it's for global registries, but it's free. But whether there's something, because I think we go too far. I've seen this with all the Epicare stuff. We all want the world. We all want fully fledged natural histories with 1,000 data elements or more. And actually what we need is a basic contact database with a few 20, maybe it's 50 data elements. Key, what epilepsy have you got? When did it start? Harold, what treatments you on? You know, seizure types, just key stuff that's the same. You can collect the same information, but having that across a whole plethora of epilepsies could be, I would have thought, quite invaluable to the likes of pharma and industry, because you can always build on that and go to the more detailed level under specific studies. But just knowing that these epilepsies over here have this in common and this group of rare epilepsies over there are more common in a different way, and how many people are actually, you know, diagnosed and so on and so forth type thing.
I'm going to have to leave, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Yeah, I know we've just got over, but
got going, haven't we?
So just before I finish, so just for the recording, and because I promised that I would pass this on. So Daniel from Epilepsy Action wasn't able to join us today, but he did just send me a quick update, so I will let you all know what he's sent through on the Conditions Insights report. So he said, I've just received an update from the IAS training department that they're currently working on updating the Condition Insight report that he forwarded to them. It's due to be reviewed by their comms team and should be updated over the next couple of weeks. And he's meeting with Chris very soon, who we did the draft with. So he'll provide us with further updates. So that sounds like it's still moving along.
Okay, just to say that we are part of RET. So if Charlie, for example, you seem interested in it, if you ever want to know any more, or if you want me to present at any time, you know, trying to get more people on a similar registry, because the whole idea of them is that they're trying to get everybody clinical trial ready and get the right kind of data that the pharmaceutical companies actually want, rather than just kind of the data we think they want. I'm happy to do that in the future at some point.
I think perhaps you could do that at one of the next quarterly meetings.
Yeah.
Is
I
that
don't get paid. I don't get paid to promote them, but I think they're amazing. so I promote them all the time because they've been great so far.
I'd be interested to have it explained, to have a little nose around. So I think it'd be great if you could do that. If you're
I'm happy to do that.
sorry,
Yeah.
that's not my job to do that. I'm sorry. I think it sounds really interesting. So if you think that's a good idea, Alison, I
Yeah, absolutely. Always looking for suggestions and ideas for the next meetings. I know also Steph had some ideas for some work that we could all do together, which I said, oh, that'd be great for another meeting. So I think we just start a little list, and you know, if we have one or too many things for the quarterly meetings, perhaps we can always offer up an interim meeting to anyone who's interested, and just set up a Zoom call, and you could present about that in between. You know, more than happy, because it sounds like we've got a few things we could present over the next couple of years at quarterly meetings, I think. So, you know, if we don't need to wait, if there is interest, we could do them in as ad hoc sessions, definitely. I'm sure if people were interested. Fab. No, it's great to have your engagement, and thank you all for your input today and for joining. I will ensure that this recording is available to everybody, and I will send out some notes and some polls and actions, and hopefully we'll get lots of volunteers for the things to keep things moving forward. Thanks very much, and have a great rest of your day.
thank you. Nice to see you all.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.